You need to truly understand the customer's problems by just asking one question and let the customer talk and reinforce the pain point to the customer. If we use that approach across every interaction, that would be phenomenal.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the interesting relationship between the two. I'm Mark Stiving. Today our guest is Vignesh Thiyagarajan. Oh my gosh, I knew I was going to blow this. Just say it, Vignesh. Just say it.
Glad to be here, Mark. And Vignesh Thiyagarajan.
Thiyagarajan. I am so sorry. Here are 3 things you want to know about Vignesh before we get started. He's one of our younger guests, and he participates a lot in the LinkedIn discussions, always has interesting things to say. So this will be fascinating. He has been a strategy and pricing manager at Sears. That certainly fascinates me, and is now doing the same for a large German company named Trelleborg. And probably the most important and coolest thing about him, he got his MBA from the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University. Welcome, Vignesh.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here again. And I'm glad that you said "the" and you emphasized it. So I'm happy. You made me happy.
It's the only way to do it. So, well, first, I guess I wasn't expecting to ask this, but how did you get to Ohio State?
Prior to the Ohio State, I was working with Deloitte Consulting for 4.5 years as a SAP consultant. And a lot of my alumni in Deloitte, they said Ohio State program was pretty good. And the network was very extensive. So wherever I go, literally could, yell out OH in the building at Deloitte and people would respond IO. So that's the vast power of the university across the globe. So that kind of fascinated me, and then started exploring the program and got interested. I was joining for the operational excellence program. But right now, as you can see, I'm on the pricing side. That transition, it helped because it truly gave me a different perspective which I found a knowledge gap I had, helped me join the program, and truly it's a global university. Loved it.
Nice. So before I get into asking questions about pricing, I just wanted to share with everybody, I have a bachelor's in science and electrical engineering from The Ohio State University, and I was a professor at Ohio State for 4 years. So I'm a huge fan, thrilled that you're an alumnus. So let's go. How did you get into pricing?
That's an interesting story that I could share. Right during the program, I was fascinated by 2 industries. One is retail. The other one is in the med tech or the medical side of the business where the world economy was growing. So I was thinking to myself that if I wanted to learn something new, which I've not done before, and I'm young, I wanted to experiment with myself and what I could do with the world. So I wanted to experiment in these 2 industries. And retail really stuck me the most. And Sears was one of the uniquely positioned trying to battle Amazon and battle digital age, as well as the consumer dynamics were changing, as well as it's struggling. So I want to understand from their perspective, as in the organization's perspective, how they make decisions. So that made me join Sears. And pricing at the very beginning was purely accident. So I was joining as a MBA intern, pretty much designing on the corporate strategy. But the first project I got was on pricing. So come and help with the appliances pricing strategy, mainly on the commercial side. That was my first project. And after that, it was just new normal. And I loved it, especially the complexity and the willingness to experiment and knowing more and more and being extremely passionate about the customers. Everything added up, the hindsight. But back then I was literally, being honest, really clueless as a young person who's venturing in this specific function rather. But now thinking back, 4.5 years of the work that I've done, it all adds up. And I would say the journey was really, really challenging and learned a lot, and I loved it. So yeah, that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. So hard question for you though here, Vignesh. If you think back those 4.5 years when you first started in pricing, and you could think about the people around you that were guiding you, do you think they understood pricing yet? Or do you think it was the blind leading the blind?
There were really the pricing function who were dedicated for a couple of years. It was, they knew what we're talking. So but they were not very influential to make decisions that could truly impact the customers or truly add value to the customers. And then, we within the organization can capture it. So I would say there are people who are good, but they really didn't have the power to influence yet. That is a moment where, those, even though you have a great idea, they've learned a lot, they have tons of experience. The operationalizing part of that specific strategies or even tactics, whatever that case may be, it becomes a challenge. And then it gets questioned on the tactics and the challenge rather than the power to influence and change. So that was fascinating to me. But the world is still yet to convert fully to this approach. There's a lot of gaps, but I'm sure now it's given what is happening around me or from my learning, it's going to be pretty fast conversion. We are beyond the tipping point in the curve of adoption. So once we crossed it, it's just a matter of time.
Okay, so I have to ask, adoption of what? Because I don't see anything moving fast, so I want to hear this.
So with the retail side, I see value in general from, again, I learned a lot from your conversations and your podcast is two types. There is economic value and there is perceived value. Right now, we have the tools to quantify, in a way, both. Of course, we know it's a matter of time. As time progresses, each value fluctuates up or down. Supply gets influenced more. So there are so many factors, but right now we have tools to crunch those data and the numbers and to build a story. That way we can influence, as in pricing people, it could be product, any function, but the function or the people who do the work of pricing can use this data, can use the tools which can help to craft their story to go and influence the right approach or the right thing to do.
So I think what I just heard you say, I think I would agree with this pretty dramatically. And that is, in the retail space, the old-fashioned retailers had spreadsheets and they would set prices and nowadays we've got statistical models that are predicting demand on times of day and other dynamic factors. Mm-hmm. And the retailers who aren't doing that are going to get left behind.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. The price tags, which was invented by, I think, John Wanamaker to standardize pricing from individual haggling or customer-specific pricing, now it's like full circle. We are now going back to customer-specific pricing, but can execute on a grander scale. And the story is so fascinating, and the realization, and everything is so fascinating. Things are changing so fast, includes the Kroger's new dynamic pricing with the price tags. I mean, my eyes light up.
Yeah. So that's really fascinating. One thing I want to go back to that you talked about earlier, and that is pricing people often know pricing really well. Mm-hmm. They often know the data, and so they can manipulate the data, massage it, do great analytics, and yet they don't have the influence inside the company. And what I often see for pricing people, if you want to truly be a pricing champion, it takes three roles, right? It takes the two that we just talked about. And that's the data, understanding data. It takes understanding the pricing mechanisms, but then it also takes this ability to lead inside the company. It's a set of soft skills that pricing people tend not to have a lot. Is that what you see? And by the way, we've been talking, and I got to say, I think that you are going to end up being a pricing champion if you're not yet.
I'm glad to hear that. I 100% agree with you because we are very good. That's how I started as well with my career. Looking at the data, seeing, I can express it, I see it, but I really didn't know how to communicate it correctly, to put a story behind it so I could influence people. But to me, for us to be effective, right now we have tools. So we also start going to a phase where we need to be change advocates, like you said, pricing champions. So our roles should be a little bit redefined and add more responsibility within the function.
How's the podcast going? Are you getting value? Research shows that people don't really value what they get for free. But I'm hoping you'll prove this research wrong. Please demonstrate to us and the entire world that you value this podcast. Would you please pause the podcast, subscribe if you haven't already done so, rate the podcast, and leave us a short review? You'd be doing a huge favor. And research shows if you invest this little bit of time, you'll probably like the podcast even more. Win-win. Pause. Do it now. We'll wait for you.
I got to learn a lot from my current manager here. And one of the key things I learned, because right now, as you know, I'm pretty young. So managers typically, she had the vision to say, you're not a good pricing person unless you effectively change the entire organization, and then the customers feel that as well, that we are truly adding value. That was very powerful feedback for me. And then I took it personally, and then I started making every single thing, including my emails, my reports, how I communicate and craft the message. I was starting to care about that. Before I was just reporting backwards. But now I'm looking forwards. So that is a dramatic shift. I'm still learning. I don't know the perfect way, but that changed my perspective, that message. So, and that is the reason why I personally feel, at least with the organization I'm in, the message is getting delivered clearly now, and the organization is slowly starting to change.
Wow, I am thrilled that you got that message early on in your career. This is pretty awesome. I have to tell you that I failed dramatically in one of my first big pricing roles because I wasn't able to influence the people around me, the different divisions and departments, and I couldn't get people on board with my vision of where we had to go. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that I ended up getting a new boss eventually, and my new boss was the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because we would talk almost on a daily basis. I would watch the way he would go do one-on-one interviews with everybody in the company, and he cared about what they cared about, and he's listening to their goals. And it was just the most amazing experience. On the next job I had, I was much more successful at being able to influence the company.
Absolutely. Sounds like my manager as well.
So mentors are phenomenal. Right. So grab that mentor. Is that the one you work for now, or was that the one at Sears?
I had one at both the places. Even my current place is right now. It's amazing. And at the Sears way, again, it was more on the analytical side, more on data heavy, because that's how retail in general as an embodiment, it works. A lot of data, quick and fast decisions is very, you need it. You need it fast. But there was not a time or a moment to take a step back and see, do we really have a strategy behind it? Or are we just chasing something? Are we just repeating whatever we are doing last year? But essentially, that's what ended up happening. If you compare things from this year to the last year with the unique product codes, there would be absolutely zero change. And the financial programs maybe go up and down, but there's nothing different. The holiday cycles got stretched. So right now, when you look at it, maybe if you're lucky, 10 to 15% down on holiday period. If not, it's going to be the same price all over the year. So it's stretched so much because after that, there's no going back. You're in a cycle already. So that is what the retail side sort of taught me in the B2C. On the B2B, it is very, very different. It was purely value. I had the time to build it. And then I started looking at things on how to do it and grow, and where we need to change, because sometimes there is not a need for a fast decision, because the product development cycle with the customer takes a lot of time. So that gives us an opportunity to truly understand what is the value the product gives you as a supplier or gives you, and those interactions gives you. So in the McKinsey's customer journey set, the funnel gets extended in a purchase cycle. So we have time. So over in retail, in the purchase of the decision, the last end of the funnel is so small. So you need to be rapid, and everybody is focused on the last bit of the funnel. the top retail brands are already there. Everybody knows about them. So everybody focuses on the last bit to convert. So that is the reason why I feel that taking a step back and maybe change a couple of those will make retailers successful in the future.
Yeah, I think what I just heard you say, and it's something I believe pretty dramatically, and that is that on the B2C side, we use a ton of data, a ton of statistical techniques to try to tease out what's happening in our marketplace so that we could set new strategies, new prices. On the B2B side, we actually have to go talk to our customers or listen to our customers and our market and our buyers and understand where they get value and how they get value.
Right.
And what I think is pretty fascinating is if you took those concepts and brought them back to the B2C, we could build better B2C models. We could probably do a better job.
100%. And B2C gives you a new avenue of opportunity is the perceived value. Like if you go and look at your t-shirt, and then what is a perceived value? We know the economic value on this, but we can truly apply the perceived value and get to quantifying them. And then what is the willingness to pay? So the cycle fits, right? So the data should help you support in what is the willingness to pay. How they value that also could be quantified. But the concepts from B2B to B2C, I mean, taking concepts from B2B to B2C would be fascinating. I think that is what everybody right now should be moving towards. And when you think about the upstream possibilities of product development and trying to increase the perceived value and the different tactics or the marketing tactics to capture that will be dramatic. So I'm just, overall, that industry excites me, and how the B2B concept can be applied to B2C truly do excite me. So it's fascinating, yeah.
Actually, that's a really good thought. I work mostly in B2B because it's way harder, because you actually have to go talk to people and understand the way they think. And yet the thing I think that's easier in the B2B side is because we're listening to customers, it's easier for us to understand what the real value is and then go build the right products that have value. In B2C, if you rely completely on this data, you've now lost that value piece. I don't understand what I should go build next. I don't understand what people value, which is pretty fascinating. So tell us, what does Trelleborg do? I want to understand a little bit more about what you're doing now.
Trelleborg is a polymer engineering manufacturer. So they make seals. So they're a sealing solutions provider. What they make is like in an airplane, when there is if you're flying over the air, there is a pressure outside, and there's internal pressure is bearable to humans, but the outside pressure is something very extremely dramatic. So it's the seals that protect from balancing pressure, internal and external, also the temperature, the leakage, and everything. So that's the space that we are in. Aerospace is just one example. If you think about everywhere, your water bottles, everywhere, they're in everywhere.
And so you guys are mostly B2B companies now? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Nice. And what do you do there? What's your daily role?
My daily role is, one of the key things is we are moving towards value-based pricing. And that is my top, I would say, more objective. I'm building this capability of value-based pricing. So the first step in general I'm taking is educating what is value-based pricing. It is about truly bringing an organization to deliver value, which means the customers should feel that. It's not just about we thinking that what the customers thinks value, but it's about truly talking to them. It could be as simple as meeting their on-time delivery metrics. Yep. Sometimes it could be, mostly it's quality. Quality is point of parity. It's not a point of differentiation, but it's knowing that what is the table stakes and what is differentiator from the customer's mind. That is exactly what I'm doing. And by having some conversations internally with sales team, and then we have some marketing specialist team, and then they're getting the perspective from voice of the customer. So it's bringing all those data and then breaking down by every segment, and then building this model as in what the customer truly is valuing, and then how we can build a water flow model to quantify them, and then how we can get the willingness to pay through some couple of customer interaction models. That is my current role. It's pretty
Nice.
vast.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly enjoyed it when I've gotten to go into a company and they say, okay, we're trying to implement value-based pricing.
Mhm.
Let's figure out how to do that. Because every product line you go talk to,
Mhm.
they think they're doing it right already. And now it's a matter of, okay, how do we do it better? How do we do it? How do we convince them they can do it better without saying you're wrong and I'm right?
Right.
So it's back to that being a champion
Right.
one more time, or leading people.
Absolutely.
And so how do you do that? What's your strategy? First time you go meet a new product line.
I would just get there. I developed something called voice of product manager. So I have a bunch of questions in general, what we think or how the specific products deliver value and which customer groups they think they deliver value. I don't ask about data. I just ask qualitative questions because every single one of whatever their perceptions can be answered through data, because that is not what I'm going there for. I just want to know their gut feeling and how they make decisions. So that drives, I believe that decisions drive delivering value to the customers. So I ask about their decision points and their experience in the past and some successes, some failure, and their thoughts on this. And then I connect the dots from, let's say they talk about some customers. So I have a conversation with the sales engineers and build their story. And then I go to the customer and build their story. And each step of the way I validate with data. And then I sort of in a puzzle, connect the missing pieces. And then build my own recommendation in terms of, is this a viable market? I talk about willingness to pay. There is also willingness to accept. So based on the organization's financial goals, is this something we are willing to continue or accept and play in this marketplace? So that is how I build one after the other. And the other one is, if you think about it, it's about what the problem that we are solving. When we quantify it, is it number of hours? There are so many ways how to measure the value we bring in or the solution that we bring in terms of time, in terms of their finances or their KPIs. And that is also as a way to quantify them. But I get into the approach at the very beginning of qualitatively connecting the pieces and then validate that with the data to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. So listening to everybody is a great idea. Just constantly listening. I love that. I work a ton with product managers, and it always amazes me how, and I want to be super nice, how little product managers actually understand the value of their own products.
I found the same as well. So there is an urgent need for the product managers to deliver success. And what happens is in those urgency, they lose the value for the product. So if they wait for that adoption curve, the product delivers more value and that you can capture more value. So that urgency is something hard to resist for them because they want to see success. They want to see results right away. So they tend to take decisions where they shouldn't even be worried about making decisions. So this is something I'm learning. And so I have certain points I've noted down. So hard to resist. Do not do solutions. Just ask questions. Just listen to them, because those are things pretty hard to get. As a young person, I was delivering, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? You could talk to the inventory people and hold more inventory to meet the sales standards, whatever that is. So I was getting into solution designing before even understanding the problem. And sometimes that happens across every function. So if I take a step back, and in one of your interviews, I forgot the gentleman's name, he said, you need to truly understand the customer's problems by just asking one question and let the customer talk and reinforce the pain point to the customer. If we use that approach across every interaction, that would be phenomenal. I mean, we truly listen rather than just react, we actually respond.
Yeah, it is so hard for anybody. I don't care if you're talking to a customer, talking to a colleague inside your company. It is so hard to not offer suggestions or solutions to problems. Man, it's something that you learn so much more when you don't do that.
That's absolutely right.
So nice. Okay, we're going to be running out of time here in a second, Vignesh, but I got to stop with the best question of all. What's the one piece of pricing advice that you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
This is something I learned from Sears as well as in my current organization. Always experiment and always learn. Never set and forget about it. That's the worst thing to do. Never do it. Always experiment, learn from the market, because the market always changes. The customers change. Everything changes. It depends on which industry you are in, of course, but it keeps changing. So always experiment and learn and continuously tweak your models. This would, to me, it has delivered successes, and I would recommend that.
Yeah. So it's an attitude that says pricing is never perfect. Let's keep working at it.
Absolutely. I liked one, pricing is like a marriage. It is complicated, it grows, and you get better over time. And then if you make mistakes, you'll get a lot of kids.
All right, Vignesh, thank you so much for your time today. If anyone wants to contact you, how can they do that?
The best way to contact me is through my LinkedIn connection. It's Vignesh Thiyagarajan. You can add my LinkedIn connection to one of the links.
Yep. We'll have it in the show notes so people don't have to try to spell it. All right. Episode 37, all finished. My favorite part of today's podcast, I'd have to say I love talking about becoming a pricing champion with Vignesh. That was interesting. So what was your favorite part? Please let us know in the comments or wherever you downloaded and listen. And while you're at it, would you please give us a 5-star review? Those are valuable to us, and we would take them. We would be very appreciative. If you have any questions or comments about the podcast or about pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.